Hey, what's up everybody? Shalom, shalom. This is Vincent Michah'El Donata, aka Donatelli. We are going to listen to some chiptune music today while we're broadcasting. This album is super dope. This is a band, I believe they're Japanese, called She. And today's lesson is not about Goku. Today's lesson is how to texture in 3D without substance or without ZBrush. So I'll give you a little illustration here. Let's say we have a pattern, and I should have had this open before we got started. I apologize. Let's say we have this flannel, right? Well, that's loading. As you can see, these two flannels, they look very similar. This is actually closer to the finished product. We still have a little bit more to go. But this is what the lesson is about today. It's how to take this flannel and make it a texture. Now, I have 11 different patterns here, okay? And as you can see, this is my first pattern for flannel. And I'm doing basically every color, and as you can see, these flannel patterns are actually unique. There's nothing repetitive about this. I put a lot of heart into trying to understand how flannel works and, you know, breaking it down. Really, the only two that are the same is the black and the white, and basically I flipped it. Just a simple invert. But we take this flannel pattern, whoops, this one here, this red one. I'm not going to really explain how to make this, but I will show you my layers. But before we get into that, it's more important to understand what texturing actually is, and how are we actually texturing a 3D model, and why should you care? Okay, so the first things first is we have to understand character design. If we don't understand the character's design, then I don't think we can move forward in texturing the character appropriately, okay? Now, Goku here is a staple character in the universe of comic books and anime and manga and all that fun stuff. But I'd like to introduce to you guys a principle of 12. Sometimes it's also known as the principle of 16. So let's take a look at what we're doing here. Let's say we grab this orange. Okay, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and make this background neutral for you so you can see a little bit better, and it doesn't hurt your eyes like it does mine. Okay, I think it'll help a little bit better. By the way, when you're trying to design stuff, it's always good to have a neutral background, neutral color. Okay, so I'm going to make a new color palette, and what we're going to do is we're going to document all of the colors that are being used on Goku. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and grab this orange, and then we're going to grab, whoops, this orange, and we're going to grab this orange. Okay, next we're going to grab his skin tone. 1, 2, actually I shouldn't have put it there. Let's try that again. Whoops, sorry about that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, next we're going to grab his blues. Now his blues are very interesting because his lighter color blues are actually desaturated. And I think there was another one. Is it this one? No, it's the same. It's this one. Okay. And of course we've got his blacks. So we'll go ahead and put this here. We've got this gray. And of course we have white. Okay. Oh, yes. Of course, we have gold. Let's go for this gold here and this color here. Now, in the beginning I said principles of 12s, but clearly he has more than 12 colors, correct? Let's count them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then, of course, whether you have ever worked in 2D or not, the alpha channel is always considered 16. So, now let's get into what exactly am I trying to communicate to you here? Why should you care? And whoops, let's make this layer, apologize. Why should you care? Because just because you have more colors doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. You want to limit your character's color palette. And oh, you know what? I totally forgot this red stuff. Oh man, so we're above 16, aren't we? So that's a darker color. This is a lighter color. These are what are also known as accent colors. Now, before we get into the number count, let me try to re-explain something here. When dealing with color, when you're trying to color an object, the objective is to run what we call a field color layout. All right? So, for example, everything in this column I'll just mark them off like this. Everything in this column are what we call F2 colors or field colors. Okay? Everything in this column are what we call F3 colors, and everything that is in this column are what we considered F1 colors. Field is what the F stands for, of course. So now what we have this extra color, right? Let me just go ahead and circle it in a different color, green. This is an extra color here. Well, what do we do with this color? Well, this color is actually not a color at all, and what it is considered is a highlight version or a highlight value. Let me try finding a brighter green here. So we're going to just mark this as a highlight. Okay, this is a highlight color. Now, what about the black? The black seems to be as a, black, gray, white. These seem to be part of the color palette, correct? Well, yes, indeed. But the black is actually not considered, black, gray, and white are actually not even considered colors. They're considered values. So technically, we can X them out. So now where are we back to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We're back to 13 colors, essentially between 12 and 16 colors. Okay? Even if we go 13, we can add 1, 2, 3. Now we're back up to 16, putting it back at magenta. So it depends on what your studio is doing and what your studio wants to do. Okay? So typically, black, white, and magenta are reserved outside of the color palette. So it gives you essentially 16 additional colors to work with. Now, why should you care? Again, it has to do with the more colors that you have, the more loud or you ever heard this term less is more? What we want to do is we want to go with the less value. Now, just to kind of reiterate here, this color over here is not necessarily black, right? It's still got a blue value of 4 in it. So what do we consider this? This is a shadow. Shadow and highlights typically don't get thrown in the same category. What I'm talking about is strictly field colors here. Just your F3, your F2, and F1. So now let's recount it. If we're eliminating our highlight color, if we're eliminating white, we're eliminating black, and we're eliminating shadow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, so we're still within our parameters of 16 colors. And technically, what I would consider is going a little lighter for the gold. And then going a little lighter again, and, staying in this family of colors. Let's move this up to red. We'll take a desaturated red. Okay, and now we have 16 colors. This is typically the method in which you want to create your character stuff. So now, why is a cell shaded look? Why was it created? Well, we have to understand, if we're going to understand anything about 2D, we're going to discuss 2D animation. A studio wants to knock out one cell as quickly as possible because it takes, what is a cell? A cell is one frame. So that means if I was to create a 2D animated cartoon, I would start with a document, maybe 1920 by 1080 or higher or lower, depending on what the studio wants to go with. And when we go 1920 by 1080, what we're doing is we're creating the size of your viewing instrument. 4:3 aspect ratio for the old days was 640 by 320, I believe. 640 by 480 or 480 by 320. It was a 4 by 3 aspect ratio. 320 by 240 or 640 by 480. That's what it was. Okay, so we have to create one frame the size of your TV screen. So nowadays we're using a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, which basically is this document size here. It's basically a rectangle, okay? 1920 by 1080, okay? So we would create one cell according to this size, so this way it fits on your TV screen. So one cell worth of animation are 30 frames per second of American television, and even in anime it's typically 30 frames per second. Disney uses 60 frames per second, and nowadays video games are actually up to 60 frames per second. So that means somebody has to draw 60 pictures or 30 pictures per second of animation. Okay, and that's too much for somebody to go through and put down 4 colors for skin. That's just crazy talk. Nobody wants to do that. So what we're going to do is, well, what manga does, or what anime does, let's look up Luffy for a minute. If we look up a Luffy slide, Luffy's from One Piece, and we can look him up from the show. Here we go. This is exactly perfect. He's basically using 2 colors for every one, or 2 tints for every one color that's chosen. So this red has 1, 2 reds. This has 1, 2 skin. Again, 1, 2 skin. The whites are left alone. The blacks are left alone. And that's Luffy for you. Of course, he's wearing blue pants. Let's see. This is not necessarily from a slide, but that's typically how he's colored. Let me find out if I can find him with his pants inside of a slide of a cartoon. I want to make sure that we're having a differentiation between fan art and what's actually happening in the episode. This is from the manga. Oh no, this is actually from the show. So, but it's still got the white highlight on it. That actually might be it, but it still looks like fan art. We're just gonna keep going. Let's try to find some. He's wearing red shorts in this arc. Okay, so he's got 1 shade of blue here, 1 shade of blue here, 1 flat shade of yellow. He's got 2 shades for his hat, but see, Goku's the same way. He does have 3 shades for his hair, but this is one of those slides where, whoops, in the episode where it's almost like AB, 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 like the hair's just kind of bop, 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 so they can kind of afford to put that a little extra highlight in. But same theory still goes. 2 shades for the skin, 2 for the pants, 2 for the gi, 2 for the belt, 2 for his undershirt, right? And they're just trying to keep this as simple as possible. He's even got 2 for his scar. Okay, so in understanding field colors and how does this apply to texturing in 3D? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer here for Goku, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this color orange here, and I'm going to go ahead and fill this in a little bit. All right, just to kind of fill the line work. Okay, so now we're using 3 distinct colors. You know, texturing, what texturing simply is the ability to paint onto a 3D model. That's what texturing really is. And we have to be able to paint this flannel design that I showed you earlier. We have to paint that on our little Western character here. Actually, that looks kind of cool. Let's just bring that back in. All right, so what I want to do is I want to show you, like, this is a cell shading style. For those of you who don't really understand the difference between cell shading and like traditional painting. So this is traditional painting right here, is where we blend this information together. And in Photoshop, there's a couple ways to do it. You can use a feathered brush, or you can change the opacity on your brush, or use a little combination of both, okay? And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to transition this hard orange into this lighter orange color. And so I kind of go back and forth, and I'll drop the opacity down a little bit more. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to create an atmosphere where it's actually very hard to tell, you know, where one color ends and where one begins. Okay. And I could put more love into it and make the transition better. I'm just trying to get you guys to understand that it's a transition that I'm fighting for right now. Okay, and same thing for over here. We want to transition from this midpoint orange to a lighter orange. Okay. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Let's go grab the other color and bring that back in. All right. Okay. By the way, today's episode is brought to you by YHWH Games from Virtual Horse Ranch 3D. Okay. It's whoops. All right. So a little bit of back and forth, and we can kind of swiffen this up by doing a quick blur. Filter blur, Gaussian blur. You know, real painters with the paintbrush, they don't have this trick, right? But we have it. We're digital. So now you can see we've got this really dark color here. It's going into the middle orange, and it's transitioning to this bright orange, okay? And that essentially is what I'm trying to get you guys to understand about why field colors are so important. It's because of the transitioning from one color to another color. Okay. We can just clean up the outline over here a little bit. And then, you know, just clean this up a little bit. And then we can also use a smudge tool and bring it back in. Smudge it out a little bit. Make the transition a little cleaner, okay? So what we want to do is we want to be able to paint on our 3D model. But as you can tell probably from the title of this video is, how do you actually texture something without substance? How do you texture something without ZBrush? Especially, like, how do you get a complex pattern like this onto a 3D model? Well, that's what we're going to go into. So let's not forget the mindset of what we're trying to do when we talk about field colors, because we have to achieve field colors in a 3D space, in a 3D environment, okay? So again, like if we sum up this particular lesson, all right, to sum up, Goku is gonna land at around 16 colors. At least, you know, if I was supervising director, I would just say make it easy, make it 16 colors. I'm not entirely sure if this is fan art or what, but I can tell you that they're typically not going to go more than that. Okay, so let's get back into 3D now. So if I go back to the shirt, this is my final product. And how do we know this is a final product? Well, first of all, we've got our flannel pattern. Let me go ahead and pull the texture up so you can see what it looks like. Okay. This is our texture map. This is the undershirt, and this is how my unwrap is laid out. And I'm going to kind of explain the unwrap system here in a little bit. And I want to make sure that the self-illumination is all the way up. Okay, so with no lighting in the scene and no 3D information being displayed in the material, I'm communicating shape and form and brighter areas and darker areas just with texturing. Okay, and we'll get into this in just a little bit. So now, let me show you this particular material. If I open this up, again, here is my material that I'm using. My texture for this material. This material has been textured. If I apply it as is, right? This is what it really looks like on the mesh. And what I had to do was tile it. So if I go 4x4, well, we're getting a little better. What about 8x8? Okay, that actually doesn't seem too bad either. What if we go 12 by 12? Oh, so now we're actually starting to get somewhere. What about 16 by 16? Okay, almost there. 20 by 20. I think this is the one that I actually went with. All right. So, why am I showing you this? What's the point? Well, in Photoshop, what we do is we're creating what we call repeating tiles. So if I go back to 0, this is the first color that I started with. And then I laid down an F3 color, which is a darker color. And I have in my folder, okay, I have these strips that I just began to stack. And I'm not going to get into my blending modes. I'm sure if you've used Photoshop before, you can probably figure it out. And if not, you know, that's a lesson for another day. You know, then I added another one, and I got this one, and then this one, and then added some. Oh, this was actually for another piece, I think. Or, yeah, it was like that. And that's my flannel pattern. Let me just go back to raw, make sure that this is what it is. Yep, this is my flannel pattern, guys. So I created this pattern at, I think this is a 1024 map. Yeah, you don't need to go any higher than that for a tileable texture. So this is a 1024 texture, 1024 by 1024, and this repeats. So I don't need this open anymore. We're just going to close that out. And to be honest, I don't need Goku anymore, so we're going to close that out. Let's go back to Max. Okay. So what I did was I set this t-shirt up to receive a tileable pattern right here. Now, what's interesting about these two different shirts is the unwrap. Open sesame. Come on, don't crash. Thank you. This is my final unwrap, and if you guys have ever watched any of my videos before, I use the Japanese style of unwrapping, which is very cubic. Okay, I try to make everything as pixel perfect as I can, stretch it all the way out to fit a grid. Okay, so this is the undershirt, this is the back of the character, this is the front of the character, this is the collar, this is the left sleeve and the right sleeve. These pieces are like the inside of the cuffs. I think this is also part of the collar too. I think this is more for ambient occlusion. Let me check. That's the collar, and then this must be the shirt. Yeah. That is the part running down for the buttons. This part. Oh, I'm wearing black, so you might not be able to see it. You know what? I don't think I said hello to anybody. Hey, Charisma. How are you? So, wait, what are we doing? What else is next? Let me show you the other unwrap, okay? And why that's important. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this unwrap, which is this. Now, I have two separate unwraps. This is my final, over here on the right. This is my initial stage. It's actually the same 3D model. But why did I do it twice? Well, if I unwrap it as is and I put the material with the tileable texture on it, this is what it looks like. We call this garbage. Everything's all stretched and it looks funky. It's not right. The pattern is all just really, really bad. And this over here on this side, this pattern over here is really, really clean. So I'm going to show you today essentially how to get this texture on this unwrap. And why am I doing this? Well, in terms of cleanliness, this texture over here, this repeating texture, which again was 1024 by 1024, is being tiled 20 times. Whereas this over here is one flat unwrap. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this super high definition, high resolution texture, and I'm transferring over to this unwrap so I can get the best texture quality possible. Yes, I can do this in Substance. Yes, I can do this in 3D Coat. Yes, I can do this inside a ZBrush. But what happens when you don't have it? That's the point of this episode, is what happens when you don't have the high-end tools and you still want to achieve high-end results. Okay. Now, as far as the undershirt is concerned, you know, how it's gray over here and how it's, you know, checker patterned over here, flannel, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, let's just get the major stuff onto the character. All right? How are we going to do that? So, step one, we need 2 meshes. So this is my final result, and I'm just going to move this over here. I'm going to switch over to my mouse configuration. Sorry, guys. I left my my good. Oh, okay. I left my good cable with my friend Courtney, and like this USB cable is not the best one. It'll short out and it'll go in and out, you know, while I'm working. By the way, I need to check my volume levels. Okay, I'm good here. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Got a mouse working now. This is my final result, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and copy it and just move it over here. And just for now, I'm just gonna put a generic material on it. This is my patterned result. So just to let you know, because I said this was the same shirt, this was the original unwrap. Like if I go to this original stack and I hit unwrap, I hit open UV editor, you can see it actually has the same UV coordinates on it as my other model did. And so what I did was, simply put, I took each piece and I put a pelt map modifier on it and I just stretched it out and I moved it over. Or another way you can do it, because it's already unwrapped, is you can go to the relax tool. You can just hit start relax, and what it'll do is it'll start getting a one-to-one shape as best as it can. Okay, one-to-one meaning this polygon right here, for example. Okay, it approximately has the same space, the length and width of each polygon in here. This is 3D space using XYZ. This is 2D space using XY. And an unwrap modifier is a conversion tool which converts 3D space to 2D space. And we try to get it to a 1-to-1 aspect ratio as best as we can, okay? And so let me go ahead and just move this over. Same thing with the undershirt. Just go ahead and hit that relax tool. Okay, move this over. Hit that relax tool. All right. And then we're going to go for each arm, just hit the relax tool. Hit the relax tool. And then for the collar, there we go. And then once we're done, we just grab everything and we hit pack. And so what that's going to do is it's going to find the 1-to-1 scale for everything. Let's go ahead and make this straight though. All right. And it's going to try to put everything, in other words, where it connects, where this arm sleeve connects to this section in the armpit, it's going to try to find the best possible size in scaling everything ratio wise. Okay, so I also see I have some tears here in the armpit, so I'm going to do tools, target weld. Okay, and I should be able to weld. Oh, it doesn't want me to weld. It's probably because I actually have a physical hole in the mesh, which I'll have to fix later. And this would go over here. Actually, it may go something like that. Let me see if it's got something in the arm sleeve I can fix. There we go. So it's hiding out over here. It's going to bring the whole thing over. Yeah. So I have to break it. Just break each part of this off. We're going to find the best solution for this. Let's go ahead and stitch this here. And then stitch this guy over here. And because he's in the armpit, he kind of doesn't need all that much space, so we'll just go ahead and do something like that. But essentially, this is our unwrap now. And as you can see, it made a really, really great and clean result. Okay? And that's what we want. To be honest, this doesn't even matter, this under part. It's going to get deleted out anyways. Okay? So essentially, that's our unwrap. But I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use this one because I put a little bit more love into this one. Okay, so let's just open it up so you can see what's going on. And I put these guys out of the way. The collar, the undershirt section and the inner sleeve section. Let me show you what that looks like. This over here. Okay. And of course the under section for the, the stomach. And if I was smart, I would go ahead and cap that off too, which I'm probably going to do here in a minute. Okay, so let's go ahead and close all this out. But that's the unwrap. 2 separate unwraps. High res for patterns, high res for in-game content. Now one might say, why don't you just leave this unwrap alone? Why don't you just leave it like this? Well, to be honest, everybody, this is an American style of doing unwrapping. There's nothing really wrong with this style. It's just, for my preference, it's not clean enough. This is wasting space. As you can see, there's a large amount of gap over here. There's a large amount of gap over here. Now, I could rearrange this and make it a little bit more cleaner, but like, you have to pick your battles, right? The objective of doing texturing is to give the client, which is the consumer, the highest quality product possible. Because of all this wasted negative space, this to me is not the highest quality possible. Yes, it's fast. Yes, it's efficient. Yes, it does save time. But when you're fighting for time and quality and budget, again, you have to pick your battles. If I go over and show you this unwrap takes a heck of a lot longer. It really does. This unwrap, the way I set it up on this character, it's tremendous amount of time. I'll build half the model, unwrap it meticulously, as you can see with my grid layout, try to mirror it back over, and I'll find some errors and I'll delete half of it, tweak it some more, and back and forth, back and forth. It does take a long time, but the quality is mwah! And that's what I fight for. YHWH Games fights for quality. And so it's just more important to us. All right. So, yes, now we have to transfer bake. So as you can see, I have a push modifier here. What does this do? Push. I say push. Okay. That was an old iMedia IT joke. Okay. It looks like she's gained mass, correct? Yes, correct. And that's what push modifier does, is it just makes things large. It increases the radius of the tube or whatever you have selected. It's essentially taking the rings and scaling them. So I scaled this 0.005 meters. What we're going to do is we're going to take this, pardon me, we're going to take this mesh, align it up, and also, my other mesh has that gap section closed off, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. Oh, did I do that already? No. Basically what I did was I scaled it and did this, and then just dragged this little guy low, like that. Okay? And actually, because it's a push, it actually needs to be above it. Let's do something like this. Now, this part does need to be unwrapped. Okay? So if I do an unwrap modifier. Why does it need to be unwrapped? Because it's... Now, this isn't supposed to happen. Let's see. If I do that, it's not going to work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse this down. And then if I do an unwrap over here. Come on, unwrap. And then I can take this guy. My bad. I didn't do the edit mesh thing. So I'll speed up my unwrap process a little bit by selecting this face, and I'll just unwrap this one section like this. See all these awkward parts? We're just going to go ahead and projection map this thing. And this is good enough because it's not going to get any data at all. This is more for the push modifier, okay? Let's put this over here in the corner. Actually, just put it off this side, and that'll do it. So now I have my push modifier. That's okay. It doesn't seem to want to be working, so we'll just delete it. And we'll go ahead and make a new push modifier. What, did we start over? Is that the end of the... Oh, yeah, it sure did. Okay, let's go over to colors. This album's pretty tight too. Just gonna drop this in. Okay, so now it pushed and made it a little larger. So what does push do? Why did I use it? So I have two meshes, right? And what it's done is it's created a distance between the inside mesh and the outside mesh. Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a projection map. We're gonna use this as our final output, okay? So if I go ahead and open this up, as you can see, this is our unwrap, and we're going to take the high resolution 1024 by 1024 flannel, and we're going to transfer or project all of that data into this UV set. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to take this unwrap. So how do we do that? We need 0 on the keyboard, or you can do rendering, render to texture. Now, this is a 3D Studio Max 2017 and under technique. For those of you who hate upgrading like me, I hate upgrading. I hate it with all my heart. I just don't feel like there's any reason to upgrade anymore for the rest of my life, especially if everything runs smooth. Why upgrade? All it does is slow your workflow down because you have the learning curve. And Arnold does not have a good render to texture system. At least when I say good, I'm using it in terms of how quick it is, how just from start to finish, how can I get it out the door? There's so much setup time in Substance, and there's so much setup time inside of Arnold. I just, like, I'm like super old school in that mentality that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the only reason why they moved to Arnold is because how I see it is that Autodesk had their contract run out with NVIDIA. NVIDIA had Mental Ray, and that's what I'm going to be using for this tutorial. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move to a diffuse map. What is this? What is this system? This is a render to texture setup. Render to texture, that means I'm going to bake out or render my texture out. And so what do I need? So first of all, I have to have my mesh selected. This is the object that I'm rendering to. Okay, so select your object that you're rendering to. This over here is a projection mapping. So we're going to turn this on. We got to pick the other object because we're rendering from that 1024 by 1024, and we're rendering to the one I have selected. So, I guess I have to. We'll just go ahead and name this mesh. We'll just call this one HD Bake. Okay. Let's call it that. Pardon me. So we'll go ahead and pick again. I didn't pick it last time because I didn't know the name of it. So there it is, HD Bake. And now what it's going to do is going to run us some calculations. So just give it a second. And it's going to put this cage all over your mesh. And this cage isn't always 100% right. You can render it and see what your results are going to be, and I would suggest that you test this out, but I have already planned for this, so we're going to get to this in a minute. Let me finish with these settings. We're using the existing channels. We have Unwrap Channel 1. Here, we have Unwrap Channel 1. We are using sub-objects with Unwrap Channel 1. Except, at 256 by 256, we're going to test it out here. and we added, so we have to add, like, what are we baking out? When it asks you what are you adding, what you're doing is you're looking for the material options in this maps channel. And so when you come here and you read all of this stuff, that is what is over here. So if you look at complete map, what is complete map? It's complete with lighting information. Specular map is over here, or specular, usually it's specular color. Diffuse is right here. Shadow map is from the lighting. Lighting map is from the lighting. Normal map is from the bump map or from the high to low res channel. Okay. Alpha map comes from opacity, and then height map comes from displacement. It's a lot of stuff, but it also comes in from the data of the 3D mesh itself. Okay. So again, this I'm picking diffuse. So I'm taking the diffuse map from this guy here, and we're going to transfer it over to basically this blank material. It's going to make a brand new texture for me. How do I do that? I can do output into source or save as a shell. Either way, it's going to get over here. Pardon me. And what's going to happen is I got to save it out to a file. I got to make a texture file. So this is going to be the name of my new texture right here. So I'm going to call this HD flannel, just for the sake of conversation. That's not even how I name my stuff. Okay, and then we'll just go ahead and render this out, see what's going to happen. It'll go pretty quick. Get some juice. Whoops. Hey. And there we go. Check that out. Got that high definition map baked out right then and there. Orange pineapple juice, baby. I love it. Okay. This looks washed out, right? Now, the reason why it's washed out is because I had self-illumination turned on from my other material. So if I turn it off, oh, actually I don't. So that means it's happening from the lighting, which I don't even really care about. It doesn't even matter. Oh, it's self-illuminated here. Let's just turn that down and see if I get a change. Let's see if that works. Did it work? I think it worked. Ah, it did. And there we are. So let's open this up in Photoshop. And that's what we get. The same exact color as my other one. But it's, you know, low resolution. I just wanted to find out if it was going to work. And it does. And, you know, part of when you're testing this out is you're looking for ray snags. And you'll know when you see them, they're going to light up bright red. It'll actually come out like 256 red. And you can tell, even on a red channel like this, you'll be able to tell the difference. Okay. And what else are we going to test out? Let's just do 1024 and let it ride. I don't even know if this is working. It'd be pretty dope if it was happening that fast. It isn't. So what it's doing is, I think it just wants me to delete this old map out. I got a little bug in my mental right here. There we go. So now it's rendering 1024 by 1024. Now when I open it up inside of Photoshop, it'll ask me to update it. And now if I look at it here, it should be 1024 by 10. Oh. That's strange. Let's try that again. That's very weird. I've never had that happen to me before. Let's just go ahead and delete that out altogether. Oh, that's super weird. It doesn't want to delete. That's weird. Okay. Can I delete it now? Yeah, that was really weird. Silly Max hiccups. There we go. Another washed out channel. Doesn't matter. This is only letting you know that this is rendering. And I'm fairly certain that in this particular scene, I think I had some lights. But it doesn't matter. I'm not getting that. I'm only getting the diffuse channel information. We're going to let it rip. Now this is step one. This is just step one. All I did was transfer a pattern over to my model. All right. And if you really want to understand this, this is really what we considered an F2, going back to our color theory information earlier. So if I open this back up, this should be 1024 now. There it is. And I got this really nice high resolution detail pattern on a 1024. So I took 1024 information of this individual flannel piece. Basically, it's, just so you understand the pattern, it's this here. It's basically everything in between here. All of this is that one 1024 sheet. Okay. I'm happy. So there's that ray miss. See that? That's because one of the cage nodes is screwed up. My guess it's in the back, right? Let me check it. Yeah, it's the back of the character. Ah, there it is. Let's close this out. You see this this vertex? It's penetrating the mesh, so I got to pull it out like that. And now when I re-render it, it'll fix it. But just to let you know, again, I don't use this cage. I select the whole thing, and I go to cage, and I reset the cage. And I will do two things. I'll see what I can get from using a slight push amount here, which that's pretty high. But it was, my other measurement was 0.005, so I'm going to go 0.006. And that should give me just enough all the way around. Now I'm going to get some clashing in here, but I don't care. That's not relevant. I can fix it later. That's an easy fix. So I can hit render. Of course, I got to delete the old one. I don't know why this is happening. It's very weird. Maybe it has to do with the skip existing files. I don't know. All I know is it's acting funny. So I just throw in a random name there. Just, oh, forgot to. I forgot to change the size. Now I'm not going to put any love into this, guys. This is like I already put a lot of love into the final texture. I'm just trying to show you the process. And again, this is just step one. So when dealing with the full-on 3D model, I still need to texture it as if I'm using my F1, F2, F3 colors with highlight and shadow. So what you have to understand is the shadow is going to come from the lighting, the highlight's going to come from the material, the F1, F2, and F3 is my responsibility to paint into this texture. And all we have right now is an F2, a flat color. Even though we have texture information, that doesn't mean that the model is complete and textured completely. Okay, so if I go back and I open this up, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control A and Control C. I want you guys to see the difference in cages. When I open this up, it's going to update and overwrite my old one. Let's go ahead and update it. Control V. Okay, so now if I go in here, right, my new cage is showing me ray striking errors, right? But it's also giving me a better texture. And so I can actually go in and paint all this out if I wanted to. But this is undershirt. I anticipated this to happen. But the new version is giving me also ray casting errors. This is happening because on the collar piece is penetrating into the shoulder piece, and it's giving me this funky error. But you won't see it because the 3D mesh is going to be on top of it. I could go in and paint it out, and that's the plan. just to let you guys know. Like, I plan on going in and painting all of this bad rate. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the good one. This is the old one. The old race stuff. See, there's the back piece again, and now it's gone because there's no penetration happening between two intersecting vertices. It's not happening. Okay, so I could still go in here and paint all this out. Any kind of funkiness that I see, I could paint out. I could also take this texture and apply it right onto my 3D model, and it can look finished. Let's just, let's just go ahead and do that. Let's just see what it looks like on our 3D model. So this is I have my 3D model selected. There it is. I'm just going to copy it over. I'll show you the difference between this final painted one and then the one that we just baked. Let's go get our material. Let's put a new one on it. And we'll go to, I think it's in my delete drive on my hard drive. Perfect. See what it looks like. Now, really the best way that we can show you this is we're going to turn on self-illumination. Okay, and we're going to get rid of all the 3D information. Now, what do I mean by that? If I turn this off, see how this 3D model looked basically 2D? It's because I turned off the 3D information, the 3D shading data that 3D Max has by default. And so this way, all I'm doing is just looking at the texture information all by itself. And we'll do the same thing for the other side, which is this one. Let me turn it on. Okay. So if I go back and look at this, let's look at the two. They're both self-illuminated. So how come I have lighting information on this one and this one I don't? Now, in a lot of circumstances, this is okay. Like for toon type of games, because the cell shading will happen automatically. But this is not only a style for me, a style choice, but this is typically how game creators are creating their textures. They actually have shape and form put into their model. Let me demonstrate. So we don't need this texture anymore. That's going away. We're going to go ahead and open up my final texture. Go to Horse Ranch and go to Western Textures, Western Shirt. It's going to take a second to open. It's a pretty big file with all the different colors in here. I know it seems like I'm going through this pretty fast. If you guys need to stop your video and take a look at it later, go right on ahead. And as you can see, I got ray striking errors there. But that's okay. It gets covered up anyways. Whoops. Let's leave that on. Go back to our original. Okay. All right. So if I turn this off and give you a neutral, let's just use this color gray. Edit, fill, and hit OK. This is the data that I baked in to create my F1, F2, and F3 layers. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what this looks like on our character. We're just going to call this a test. All right, put it in the 2048 folder. I'll show you what it looks like with my detailed information on the inside of it. Hey, get over there. And we'll go ahead and turn on self-illumination again so we can just see the 2D data. And then we turn it on. Now look at that. Super clean. I love it. And again, this is a style thing for me too. I really like having gradients go from dark to light, right? And I can still make it pop a little bit more. And I think I will. But I have really nice ambient occlusion happening in here. I've got you know, dark to light happening out here. No, this is not a mistake. That's the way that I wanted to do it. I think that I need to do it all the way around the cuff rather than just on top. I've got methods for that, but I'll get to that another day. A master does not reveal all secrets at one time. Okay. So where are we going from here? I'm going to give you guys some high value today. High value today. Let's break down my lighting information. So first things first, I have an ambient occlusion layer. All right, this is what I baked out of Max right here, ambient occlusion. What is ambient occlusion? If you go like this with your hands, you'll notice that light is becoming occluded and you can see this dark shadow starting to formulate around your hand as it gets closer. Another name for ambient occlusion is contact shadows. It was actually developed by Industrial Light and Magic. And it was perfected in Shrek, if I remember correctly. So I cranked the levels. I wanted to have less gray tone and more white. I also didn't want it to wash out the blacks. So then I have a duplicate layer. I basically just took this same layer and duplicated it and ran a multiply on top of it. And now I have a little bit darker. I can do it again if I want. And as you can see, the more I do it, the more blacks increase. But the truth is, shadows ain't black, folks. Shadows ain't black. Okay, so what I did also was I created something from my color temperature palette. Color temperature is mwah! It's a gorgeous method of texturing stuff. So I have in color temperature. Let's look at a color temperature chart. Color temperature charts. Color temperature chart is dictated in Kelvin. Look at this. I love this diagram. So fascinating. And for those of you who've ever used Mental Ray before, as low resolution as this image is, it's so true. Kelvin in degrees, 1,000 degrees Kelvin, maxing out to 10,000. So apparently, like the way that it's tested out is this is the color of the sky, and as the sun sets, the sky decreases in color temperature. Same thing with LED lights. The lower the color temperature is, it gets in red. The higher it is, it gets bluer. And so at some point in the middle, you're going to find between 4,000 and 5,200, you'll find white. And I usually found that out about 4,400. Now what does that mean? I can go and create a light inside of 3D Max. Yes, I'll go ahead and make it exposure control. Just put a light in here. And then I can look at my light and say, Kelvin, 4,400. There we go. And maybe 48. Yeah, it's getting close to white. So if I hit 5,000, will I break white? 5,600. 5,600 is pretty white. It's pretty close. I could use a color filter too if I wanted to, but I don't recommend that for lighting. And then turning the volume up basically and illuminating, creating more lumens or creating more illumination, you can do by lumens or you can do by cadence. I usually do cadence. So something like this. Okay. Then to turn the shadows on and turn it to ray trace shadow map. So if I hit Control L, I think it is. There we go. So Control L will let me see this information with the light, if I remember correctly. I also like to use my penumbra, which is also in 3D Max known as attenuation. Okay. All of this stuff is self-illuminated, so it actually is going to take it out. I forgot to have it on. So let's turn it all off. There we go. See, now the lighting is starting to affect the object, okay? Now the reason why the lighting looks so bad, by the way, is because I'm working in centimeters, and photometric lights like to be used in feet and decimal inches or in meters, but everything's got to be fairly large, so I'd have to scale it up for this to work right. Doesn't matter. My point was, if we're going to understand our F1, F2, and F3, we baked out F2, which is considered white. Now we got to go shade lighter, and we got to go shade darker. So we got to get our F1 color, and we got to get our F3 color. Meaning, when we look at our mesh over here, let's just turn this off, and let's turn our self-illumination back on. Okay. Meaning, this brighter area right here, this is what I considered my F2 color. This gray bleh tone is my F2 color, and of course getting darker in the armpits is my F3 color. So I'm making sure 100% of the time I have F1, F2, F3 working for me. Now, what I don't have in this scene currently is shadow and highlight. Those are non-existent. And I want to keep it that way because that's going to be dictated by in-game content. And that's the most important thing for you to understand, is that lighting has to be done in-game. Now, also, just so you guys know, in the mobile space, video games are not lit. And they're not lit well because you're still using a phone. It's a phone. It's not a console. It's not a handheld gaming device. It's a phone that has 3D capabilities in your phone. It's a phone, guys. It's still a phone. So in order for it to not break or blow up or explode or get too hot that you put your face up against it and get some burns, you got to take some information out. And so what we have to do is bake some information in. And so players want to see more of the lighting information baked in, which is, go back, like this. They want to see something like this more than they want to see this. And if you have a PC game or a console game, they absolutely do not want to see this. They want to see this. Okay? Just look at Assassin's Creed, look at Halo, look at Metal Gear, look at all those games. You're going to find out that all this stuff has shading built into it. The only time that this will work is in really kiddie games. Kirby is one of those guys. At least old school Kirby. Like if you look at Nintendo 64 quality graphics, everything looked like this. Now, let's go back to color temperature. Color temperature, you have to understand, shadows are not black. They're the color of the lighting. They're the color of the lighting. They reflect the color of the lighting. If you go outside at 12 o'clock noon on a great day, you look down on a gray pavement, you look at your shadow, it's going to be blue. It's going to look gray, but it's going to have a blue tint to it. If you go watch the sunset, and when the sky starts looking purpley orange, look down on the ground, guess what? It's going to look purple. It's the light is reflecting the sky. Use that as a guide to help you understand how shadows would be done on a red surface. So if I hide and unhide this, you are barely going to see any kind of visible change between an orange shadow and a red background. So we have to crank it. We have to crank it, and we have to crank it again. So now what we get is we get more color information, and then we have to duplicate it and crank it again. So now we get some contrast. Okay, so let me explain what's happening here. Warm color tone, cool color tone. Now I created a separate folder, one for cool light, one for warm light. And I figured that maybe by blending the two, I would get a pretty dope result. And I think I did get a pretty dope result. Like this is a combination between warm and cool light, and putting it up against a red background. Nailed it. Just nailed it. I love it. So if I go and check it now, this doesn't work for every color. So this is where you as an artist have got to be creative and do something for yourself and, you know, make it work for you. So like for this example, for this green, what happens when I take the warm out? Well, now it actually looks a little like a blue hue. Leaving the warm light in feels warmer and it brings the colors together. Why? Because, well, you know, yellow and blue make green anyway. So why not have the warm light incorporated? See, this yellow light the blue doesn't really sell it well. So what happens when we turn it off? Whoops. Don't show this. Okay, so what happens? So now we're just dealing with warm color right now. It's just warm colors. So if we duplicate it, right, you get a little bit better result. You know. And that's okay. It just depends on how far do you want to take it. Do you want to take it to the next level and go even darker? Well, you can. Like this. There's nothing wrong with that. It just depends on what your artistic preference is. Yellow is a different color, a difficult color to kind of like bring together. So I wouldn't go too dark. I wouldn't. So what about orange? Okay, if we bring some blue in, hey, it kind of adds to the life. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, what about purple? Now, purple and warm colors, I don't think it works all that well. So let's just look at it with cool colors. This feels like Decepticons to me. Add a little bit of warmth in there. Nice. Okay. What about cyan? Let's get rid of that warm color. Let's take it out. Like this nice blue, rich. Now, but see this yellow. This yellow is supposed to be a vibrant yellow. It really feels like somebody didn't hug it. We bring the warm color back in. The yellow starts to feel a little bit more like yellow, but it also feels like it's got a green hue to it. So what happens if we cut it to 25% instead of 50? Now we're getting somewhere. I could also create a brand new layer too, another layer of yellow, and overlay it. There's some tricks I can do just to isolate the layer of yellow, but I don't care. It's not that important. Purple, or this magenta color, you know, what happens if, oh, see, now that's really nice. We don't want to leave it exclusively blue, because then it starts making everything feel more purple again. We already have a purple shirt. This one's got to be magenta, eh? Okay, magenta. Gray tone. Now, what's interesting about gray, okay, that's what it looks like when I got it baked out. What's interesting about gray is there are warm tones with gray. If I go 100%, there are warm grays, and there are cool grays. Which one do we use? Which one we gonna do? Well, might need to do one of each. Might need to do one or the other. Well, maybe we do 50% of each one. 50-50. It's not bad. What about black? What are we going to do for this? There are warm blacks and there are cool blacks. But for the most part, black is black, correct? So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the warm colors and just use the cool color. Let me see if I'll use a little bit of both. Yeah, see, it's too warm for me. So maybe 25%. Might not be too bad. What if we go blue and blue? That's not bad either. Okay, and then white, of course. White's a tricky one. But I think I made a custom, yeah, I made a custom lighting kit for the light. The whiteness on it. Had to. Couldn't use just warm or cool colors because it tinted it too much. See, that's a warm white. It's like Dwight Schrute. It's a Dwight Schrute white. And then this one is more like a cool gray, so I don't want to go gray again. Dwight Schrute, everybody. He's always got that putrid yellow shirt on, or gold, or it's always brown. It's gross. Oh, he's such a character. Okay, well, that's it. That's pretty much it, guys. Okay, so hopefully you guys learned something today. You've got to get your F1, your F2, your F3 down. But I did tell you guys I would show you how to do that, didn't I? So let's go and get into that. Now, if I turn off diffuse, Come on. Now, why isn't this working? Oh, that's why. Okay, so this is my lighting information. Now, where did I get this awkward texture from? Simple. Let's go into Max. Let's create a copy of this mesh. It's got my final texture coordinates on it. All right, so what I want to do, I want to get a generic material, something that's 50% gray. Okay, let's get target light. X and Y, pivot, let's do center to center. Let's get this out, whoops. Oh, you know what? Let's do what I said earlier and make this much larger. Let's scale this at like 700%. Or 3000% is fine. Okay. Whoops. Hey, move. What we're doing is I'm pivoting up the lighting information so this way I can get excuse me, I can get a nice even light. If I hit Control L again, now I can and then also turn off my self-illumination on this guy. Alright, and then also check my light lister. I want to make sure there's no other lights in this scene. This is an old scene, and I do have lights in here. We're just going to go ahead and delete these out. Okay. So I got a skylight in the scene. This should not be self-illuminated. Just check it one more time. It is not self-illuminated. So now if I put a light in the scene, apologize for the delay. And let's go ahead and make it, what did I say, 56? 5600? And then now what I can do is I can adjust my penumbra and give myself a bit of a fall off. A bit of a fall off. Just move this down like this. Oh, we're out of music. I wonder what kind of music Dwight listens to. Oh yeah, he's a metalhead. How about we do some... Oh, because I'm super excited for Final Fantasy to come out. Let's do Final Fantasy 7. Let's do OST orchestra. Four hours of orchestra. Let's do it up. Oh, that's all Distant World stuff. I don't want to do some Distant Worlds. Sounds like I'm more interested in Final Fantasy 9 than I am 7. No. Go away. We'll just stick with the MIDI soundtrack. There we go. So now, how do I know this is going to work? So if I just hit render, simple. Something still isn't right here. At 1500, it's rendering environment. I might probably have to do this in perspective mode. 8 on the keyboard to bring up your oh, it's because it's on logarithmic instead of mental ray exposure. Okay, I've got no information because my light is too dim for this size. So let's go ahead and add like 3 zeros to it. Now let's check it. It's probably too big. Okay, there we go. Which means it's too hot, so let's knock a 0 off. That is actually not too shabby. And to be honest, like this is the kind of like interactive lighting I was really wanting to go for. So what I can do, excuse me, I can adjust my penumbra a little bit and try to get something a little bit more even on the decay. Okay, let's bring this up a little bit. See, oh, that's starting to look really nice, really, really nice. Turn on erase trace shadows. Okay, so now we got to even it up a little bit. So let's just point it at the character. So we'll turn this one off. Okay, and I like to render like one light at a time, just to make sure I'm getting the result from the light that I'm looking for, one light at a time. Okay, so now if I adjust this one, maybe something like this. Maybe I have to pull the light away a little bit here. You have to remember. Oh, I forgot I had Metal Gear going on over here. Sorry, I wish, you know, part of me wants to hook all this stuff up together, but currently I'm just doing the combat deployment stuff, so it takes like 2 hours or whatever at a time, and it's just not that important. So let's wreck some shields, and let's also wreck some machine guns. So I'm 45% done with this game, having a great time with it. Okay, let's go back. I'm using the dog as my diamond dog is my primary buddy. I think he's pretty awesome. Just unlocked the stun ability. I try not to kill anybody in that game. It's a bit of a challenge to me. Okay, so this is pretty evenly lit. I like this. Now what we've got to do is we've got to light it on the corners of the shoulders. So let's just rotate this around. Shift rotate. And let's even this up a little bit. I'm not just to eyeball this. Again, it doesn't matter. I put all the love that I put into it, you know, already. This is just demonstration. That's good enough. See how nicely evenly lit is? Now, let's get some understanding in, right? Currently, I'm kind of only dealing with F2 and F3. There's really not much of a hot area. Let's turn this on. Let's turn this middle one on. Maybe I can get... Oh. Maybe I can get some heat and generate... Yeah, there we go. So now I've got 3 contrasting colors. I've got my light, my medium, and my dark. Now, what about lighting it from underneath? I don't really want to do that. I don't want to light underneath. I do like these arms better. Actually, I'm kind of like digging this a lot. Let me see what it looks like when I render it. Let's just see what happens. Now, I can tell you the term is it's overexposed. The heat is going off way too hard. So there's a couple things you can do. One thing that you can do is turn the volume of the light down. So instead of using 15, maybe we can use 10. And that means globally I could turn down all of the lights. If I go to my light lister, it'll be a lot easier to deal with. So I can just basically come over here and copy this number and just paste it all in and see if this curbs some of the heat. If not, let's turn it down some more. So the objective is when you're rendering this stuff out is try not to have it overexposed. And this line stuff is not cool with me. It would actually be better if these were ambient shadows instead of ray traced. So I can try to switch that up and switch them to mental ray shadows. That might give me a better result. Oh, but I got to do it for everything. I can't just do it for the one. Of course, the more samples you have for mental ray shadows, the better the product. Okay. Hopefully this will be a little bit better. There we go. A little bit smoother in transition. Don't have harsh shadows. Trying to blend a little bit. I also don't feel like the shadows are as heavy as they were. And then this area is still really exposed. Now, what do I mean by exposed? Like, you see how intense this white is, and when it transitions, it's leaving this orangey residue, this transition color. That's because it's too hot. I really wish I would get a better interactive experience out of this. Let's just go ahead and turn this down to 7. See if I get a better result now. Now, could I use a camera? Yeah, I could use a camera, but I'm not going to be in here much longer anyways. Now, I just keep doing, turning down lights, turning up lights, turning down lights, and just go back and forth until I get the result that I want. The point is, when I'm done of getting my achieved result, my desired result, I'm going to go in here, change my padding to about 8, and then add a lighting pass. And, switch it to 1024, 2048, whatever you're doing at. But just to show you what's going to happen is I'm essentially going to get this texture right here. If I open this up, okay, that's essentially what I'm going to get. And again, just going back and forth, tweaking the lights, trying to get it right. I got the result that I wanted for the most part. I think I did a pretty good job getting my lighting cavity to work. And then, I'm dealing with these issues in here. I worked on this file very, 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 very late, like 3:30 in the morning. And I noticed that I was actually using the wrong material the whole time. You're never supposed to use, this standard generic crap material that Max comes with. Where you at? Where you at, son? Don't use this. Switch this over and go to Arc and Design. Of course, you can't get Arc and Design because I don't have Mental Ray turned on, which is weird because everything's set to Mental Ray, which means it's going to actually look better when I render it this time. Okay, and then I go, okay, after that's done, can I close you? Thank you. Let me just switch this to... Now, just to make sure that you guys understand, there is a difference between architectural and Arc and Design materials. Architectural is 3D Max. Arc and Design is Mental Ray. So, put this matte finish material on here. We got Mental Ray, so let's just do matte. Okay. Now that we have... and I should have known better. It's like, if it's not rendering in buckets, then that means it's rendering in scanline. Scanline's default. I had no idea why I wasn't thinking about that. And I should just get much, much better results out of this now that I'm rendering with Mental Ray. And I am. Like, see, everything's like super soft. And that's what I wanted to begin with. Okay? Which means if I actually put some more love into this material, into this piece, I could probably use this lighting map with the other lighting map. Let's just see what it's going to do. It's so beautiful in that blending, that transition. All right, we'll just cancel it out. And let's go ahead and switch this to 2048. Just see what happens. Let's see where life takes us. Oh. It's going to take a minute. Feel free to take a juice break. Actually, that looks way better. This juice is a little too acidic for me. Let's just add some water. So that was the first render pass. Okay, so what do you do in your render when your lighting information doesn't feel good? Or when you get this kind of weird speckling or whatever? Easy. What did I do here? Oh, that was for the arms. Very simple. What you do is just blur it up. This is Gaussian blur filter. Okay. And I like that. I like how like just super transition-y smooth it is. And then just of course throw some levels on it and you get some really, really great results. Okay. And then of course when you go back and you add your color information, let's go back. Oi. Come on. So we have an ambient occlusion layer in here too, which is down here at the bottom. And that, what ambient occlusion does is it gives you like better direct contact shadows. It's good stuff. I just don't like how up and down this is. This is due to two things. Number one, it's due to the geometry. There's just, I'm skimping on the geometry. And the second thing that's causing it is the unwrap. Okay. But I mean, honestly, this kind of thing is gonna happen in almost any type of lighting bake that you're gonna find. When you do it the American way, it takes it out a little less. But again, quality. All right, I'm just gonna let that ride. You know, it's up to you. It's up to you how you want to handle this stuff. But going back to what we were talking about in regards to F1, F2, F3. I've got my darks, my F3. I'm coming up to medium. I got my F2. I'm sorry, which would be around like in this area right here. This is my F2. And my F1 is right here. This solid meh gray. Now I could go lighter, it could go darker. It's okay. As long as you have F1, F2, F3 in terms of, see how this 128 gray is? This is what this 128 gray is as F2 as you're ever going to get. Okay, right there. 128. Okay. I don't have anything, like typically your F2 color is supposed to be right here in this family. Right here. It's just like if you're going up, you go a third of the way up. Or if you're already at the middle, you go halfway to the top. And that's your F1 color. Go halfway to the bottom, that's your F3 color. Okay. But what I'm doing is, just so you know, my F2 colors are kind of hanging in the middle because I want the vibrancy of the texture to come forward, not the vibrancy of the lighting information. Just to make sure that we're clear. Oh no, I just opened Unity. I don't want to do that. Oh, and I just opened Systems. Come on, man. Let's go find Unity. Sorry, Unity. Go away. We don't need you open. All right, let me go over to this. By the way, folks, if you have any questions, please ask. I might be breaking up a bit because I'm rendering. What percentage are we at? Oh, we're almost done. Lovely. me check and see what Snake's doing over here. Get some rewards. Oh, staff member died. That sucks. How does an S rank character get hurt by anything less than S rank? Lucky shot, I guess. Ah, FOB. Oh, I gotta be online. Construct a new FOB to expand your base. You must purchase territorial waters before construction can begin. Except I gotta be online. I don't understand the need to be online 100% of the time. As a game designer, all I understand it to be is a waste of bandwidth. You know, people, you're basically the majority of video gamers that are out there are middle class individuals. Middle class individuals don't always have the ability to make their internet bill. And when they make their internet bill, they don't want to spend more than they can, more than what they have. And by forcing people to be online all the time, all you're doing is just chewing up bandwidth that doesn't, it's not necessary. But I know they want you to be able to play across the world with somebody who, God bless me, who's in the same situation that I am. I just don't see a need. It's probably because I'm antisocial. It's just, that's the kind of individual I am. I can speak in front of 500 people and not flinch, but you know, the one-on-one situation really screws with me a lot. Okay, so there's my lighting pass. Let's go ahead and grab it. Right here, let's bring it into max. See what it's gonna do. Ooh, that's a big file. I really don't like this. This is really bad. I could see if it was even, but it's not evenly lit. So let's see what happens when I run a little blur on it. First things first, let's grab the alpha channel and hit Control J, okay? Second thing is, we're gonna go ahead and make these into separate layers themselves. Control J that. Do, 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 do. All right, so we got separate layers. Oh, I need to separate each arm out separately. You know, a game I miss playing is Final Fantasy 15. That game was so dope. I learned so much about game design for that game. What a masterpiece that was. What is the biggest thing I learned from that game? Lines of dialogue. Having more lines of dialogue almost by default makes your game better. In other words, the more lines you have, more time people spend talking, the better. It helps with character development. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to go put them in a group, and we're going to duplicate this group because I like having raw data and I like having Vince data Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Actually, don't ever blur it unless you control click the selection. There's just a better trick. Let's get rid of this piece. It's too far for me. Hopefully, this will help University of Houston students next semester when they start texturing. So, hi people in the future. Totally forgot to break out the collar piece. So last night in Metal Gear, I had to go to the facility where they were trying to figure out what's going on with the voice situation. Probably putting a little too much love into this here right now. Let's get rid of you. I can tell you, this song is making me want to try and grab my guitar over there in the corner. Man, I can't wait to hear the new soundtrack for that game. Oh my God, I'm so excited. All right, filter blur, one at a time. Whoops, we gotta save the stuff too. Blur, Gaussian blur. So what I'm looking for is I'm just trying to look how to get this transition cleaned up. Maybe something like that. And then, you know, I'm having to deal with these feathered edges, right? And then you just control J it until it becomes solid again. And you just merge it back down. Okay, let's do this next one. 1914. So this one's kind of a special case because everything is going up and down. So instead of doing a Gaussian blur, we're going to do a motion blur. Filter, blur, motion blur. We're going to run up and down instead of left and right. And I'm just going to, yeah, something like that'll work. And just hit Control J a bunch of times. There we go. Just merge that down. So I gotta get this back going. There we go. Now, because I unwrapped it symmetrically, I should be able to blur it and then cut it in half and then flip it over. What did I say, 19.2? Ooh, that's still not good enough, is it? So what we'll do is we'll grab this side. I missed the middle. There we go. Control J. Edit, transform, flip horizontal. That's better. Actually, you know what I should have done? Let's just do this. Just like that. Merge down. And then we can just blur it slightly because I can see that there's a little mismatch in color right here in the middle. Yeah. There we go. All right, so this is my new lighting pass. Let's see what it looks like when I combine it with the other lighting pass. So we're going to go ahead and group these together. We're going to call this lighting 2. Now, I can tell you what I don't like is it's like this same murky gray going from here up. What I do like is the sleeves. So I might be able to use one part of this and not the whole thing. So we'll just go ahead and make a new layer. Let's take it out of the folder. Make a gray layer here. Okay, and we'll just use a warm color first and see if there's anything we can do with it. Besides increase my file size. All right, okay, I don't need you anymore, so let's close you down. You're in the mix officially. Okay, let's see what happens when I run some blending modes on this puppy. Excuse me. The lighting is pretty nice. No, it isn't. Well, I'm not getting any results in this area of the blending. Let's try bringing it down. Now that overlay looks really good. I really like how it's bringing, I don't know if you can see it, but there's some orange that's being brought out down there. Put it down towards the bottom. I'm going to start over with the color blending. Hey, that darker color. Pretty nice, pretty nice. Light and color. This is working for me. Overlay. Overlay is working for me. Hard light. That's working. I can get some really nice color happening right here. Let's see what it looks like with the red. Let's see, let's see. I'm getting some really heavy reds over here. Well, I feel like that is helping out greatly. Let's see what it looks like on the 3D model. Now I know what you're thinking. I can get these results in real time when you're using Substance. Congratulations, you're irrelevant. What if your trial ran out with Substance? What if you can't afford it? Stop thinking selfish. Alright, let's go back. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and save this file up because actually it worked out. But let's open my actual file that I've been working on, which is over here. I think I'm going to wrap this podcast up here in a second. I think you guys are finally understanding what I'm trying to get at. Let me check to see if there's any questions up there anywhere. Nope. Okay. Come on, Dorothy. Wait. Ah, there you are. We got some pretty dope denim happening in the pants. Man, that shirt looks awesome. Very happy. I got my better gradient happening in the sleeves which I wanted. Now my monitor has a tendency to make things dark. So if that's the case, like let's say I export this out, my client may come back and say, "Hey Vince, you know, all these Vince and Michael, all these textures you're giving me are super dark." That's the easy fix. All I got to do is go through and adjust the levels. I didn't even notice that little hiccup before in the mesh. Oh, come on. Oh man, that is not very fruitful, I believe. Man, it's like I need a loop going right through there. Okay, I'll deal with that later. It's not important. Yeah, the back texture came out really nice, the lighting. So what we can do is I can just adjust the levels real quick because I think it's probably going to be a little too dark. So there's two ways to go about it, right? As a matter of fact, I might actually have a levels layer on here already. Nah. Okay, and then I also don't like how orangey that's coming out. Let me see what it looks like on the model. It ain't that bad. Okay, move it on. Oh, maybe you guys weren't able to hear my music at all. It's too low, maybe? Oh, it looks like the microphone was actually picking it up. So you got something. Little something something. Whoops. We can just do a layer, new adjustment layer, put a levels right here. And then just bring it up. Something like that. Let's check it. Check it. Yeah, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. All right, let's check it one more again. Brighten it up a little bit. That's better. I think that'll look much better. All right, and that's it, guys. That is our lesson for the day. And so essentially what I did is I took that technique of the flannel and I applied it to the denim because I do have a denim texture in there and I had to get the denim right. And, you know, I didn't have another way of doing it. So, mazel tov, right? So this is with no lighting information in here. This is just flat as is. It kind of looks like pantyhose in the way that I did the material for the pants, but you know what? I'm pretty happy with all this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take a break. And then I think when I come back, I haven't decided if I'm going to texture the pants, because I mean there's still some more stuff that I can do with the shirt. I mean technically I'm not done. I mean it doesn't have any buttons on it, doesn't have any pockets on it. Most flannels have pockets. So there's still a lot of little things that I can do to tweak this model and make it pretty cool. I think I'm going to give it some pockets next. That'd be kind of fun. And then of course I got to do the boots too. This model was done by Samantha Watts